Stop scrolling for a second. Seriously. If you are planning to get in a car or on a plane next week for Thanksgiving, you need to hear this right now. We aren't just talking about a little dusting of snow. The models are starting to lock onto something massive that could completely wreck your holiday travel plans. You know how your grandma always says she can feel the weather changing in her bones? Well, the data is finally catching up to her intuition. We are looking at a setup that hasn't happened in years, and it's aiming straight for the busiest travel days of the year. Before we dive into the chaos, drop a comment down below. Where are you watching from? Are you Team Turkey or Team Ham this year? Let me know. Now let's break down why this Thanksgiving might be white, messy, and unforgettable. Okay, let's get straight into the meat and potatoes of this situation. You know that feeling when the air just feels different? That crisp, heavy silence before a storm? That is exactly what meteorologists are seeing on the global charts right now. For the last few weeks, we've been dealing with this weird mild autumn weather where you can't decide if you need a puffer jacket or just a hoodie. But that is all about to change in a violent way. The jet stream, think of it as that giant river of air that steers storms across the country, is currently buckling. Instead of flowing in a straight, chill line from west to east, it's starting to dig deep. When the jet stream digs south, it opens the freezer door. We are talking about a massive plunge of Arctic air that has been building up over Canada and Siberia, just waiting for an excuse to spill south. And guess when it wants to crash the party? Exactly when you're trying to drive to your in-laws. Now, here is where it gets interesting. Usually, these forecast models, the GFS and the Euro, fight with each other. One says rain, the other says snow. But right now, they are starting to agree on a scenario that looks incredibly active. We aren't just looking at one little system. We are looking at a potential collision of energy. You have moisture streaming up from the Gulf of Mexico, that's the fuel. And you have that bitter cold air diving down from the north, that's the spark. When those two meet, usually somewhere over the Midwest or the Ohio Valley, you get a bomb. The timing here is the sketchiest part. If this hits on Tuesday or Wednesday, we are talking about millions of people stuck on I-95 or I-80 in whiteout conditions. It's not just about snow, it's the wind. The pressure gradients are looking tight, which means even if you don't get 2 feet of snow, the wind could cause drifting that shuts down roads anyway. It's a classic grandma was right moment. She told you to pack the heavy coat, and you rolled your eyes. But this atmospheric setup is basically Mother Nature validating every warning your elders ever gave you. We are seeing energy bundling in the Pacific Northwest right now that is going to dive bomb across the Rockies. Once it crosses the mountains, it's going to tap into that Gulf moisture I mentioned. This is the recipe for what we call cyclogenesis. It sounds like a sci-fi movie term, but it basically means a storm is born and gets strong, fast. And this isn't just a local problem. This system has the potential to stretch its legs from the plains all the way to the East Coast. But here is the thing, knowing a storm is coming is one thing. Knowing exactly where that rain-snow line is going to set up is what saves you from a nightmare. And there is one specific shift happening right now that changes everything. So, let's talk about the specifics of this shift. In the weather community, we call this a pattern change. But honestly, it's more aggressive than that. If you look at the charts from just a few days ago, it looked like a standard chilly week. But now, the data is screaming volatility. I saw a headline the other day from a major weather analyst that perfectly summed it up. A national pattern flip will bring heavy snow, and that is not an exaggeration. When you flip the pattern from a zonal flow, that's the boring, mild stuff, to a meridional flow, that's the wavy, stormy stuff, the atmosphere tries to balance itself out by dumping huge amounts of energy. This national pattern flip is crucial because it locks the storm track in place. Imagine a bowling alley. For weeks, the atmosphere has been throwing gutter balls. Storms missing us, staying north, or just being weak. This flip puts the bumpers up. It forces the storm to track right through the heartland of the US. We are looking at the potential for a low-pressure system to deepen rapidly as it moves toward the Great Lakes. If you are in Chicago, Detroit, Cleveland, or even stretching into Buffalo, your ears should be perking up. The Great Lakes are still relatively warm. They haven't frozen over yet because it's been so mild. So when this Arctic air blasts over those warm waters, it turns on the snow machine, lake effect snow on steroids. This isn't just pretty Christmas card snow. This is I can't see the hood of my car snow. But it's not just the north. Because this trough is digging so deep, the cold front on the backside is going to race through the south. This means places like Nashville, Atlanta, or even parts of Texas could see a flash freeze. Imagine rain falling all day, soaking the roads, and then temperatures crashing 20 degrees in 3 hours. That creates a flash freeze scenario, which is actually more dangerous than deep snow because you can't see it. It's Black Ice City. The European model, which is often the king of medium-range forecasting, is particularly bullish on this idea. It shows the storm slowing down. And a slow storm is a bad storm. If this thing stalls over the Northeast Corridor during Thanksgiving Eve, we could see flight cancellations rippling across the entire country. You know how it works. If a plane can't land in New York, it can't take off from LA. The ripple effect is instant. This pattern flip is basically the atmosphere deciding to throw a wrench in the entire logistics network of the United States right when 50 million people are trying to move. So the pattern is locked, and the cold is coming. But the biggest question isn't, will it snow? It's, will I actually get to dinner on time? Let's break down exactly which days you absolutely need to avoid on the road. Alright, let's get practical. You don't care about isobars and dew points. You care about whether your flight is going to get cancelled or if you're going to be stuck in a parking lot on the interstate. The timing of this system is lining up in the worst possible way. Historically, the Wednesday before Thanksgiving is the single busiest travel day of the year. It's absolute madness even when the sun is shining. Now, add a high-impact winter storm to that mix, and you have a recipe for gridlock. If the current models hold, the worst of the precipitation is going to be breaking out Monday night into Tuesday across the Midwest, and then shifting to the East Coast by Wednesday. This means if you have a flight booked for Wednesday morning out of O'Hare, JFK, Newark, or Logan, you need to be checking your airline app like it's your job. The delay potential here is extreme. Even if the runway is clear, de-icing planes takes time. When every single plane needs to be de-iced, a 10-minute delay turns into a 4-hour delay, and cruise timeout, meaning your flight gets cancelled because the pilots legally can't fly anymore. For the drivers out there, Tuesday looks like the trap day. You might leave in the morning thinking, oh, the rain isn't so bad, but as you cross state lines, especially if you are crossing the Appalachians or driving through the Rust Belt, that rain is going to change over to heavy, wet snow. This is the kind of slushy, concrete-like snow that causes spinouts. If you can leave Monday, do it. Seriously. I know it means taking an extra day off work, but the difference between driving on Monday versus Tuesday/Wednesday could be the difference between a 6-hour drive and a 12-hour ordeal. And don't forget the return trip. This system is going to pull away by Thanksgiving Day, leaving behind bitter cold and wind. But then, guess what? There is a signal for a second clipper system trailing right behind it for the weekend, Saturday and Sunday, right when everyone is trying to go home. This is the 1-2 punch that makes this forecast so tricky. You might make it there safely, but getting back could be a whole new adventure. It is also worth mentioning the Thanksgiving Day parade. If you are in NYC or watching on TV, expect it to be frigid. The wind chills could be in the teens or single digits. Those giant balloons? They can't fly if the winds are too strong. There are strict regulations about grounding the balloons if sustained winds hit a certain threshold. And right now, it's looking like it's going to be right on the line. Imagine showing up for the parade and seeing just the handlers walking without the balloons. It's a bummer, but it's a real possibility with this pressure gradient. So we know the timeline is messy, but who exactly is in the bullseye? I've got the regional breakdown next. And there is one specific area that I think is going to get hit way harder than people expect. Let's zoom in on the map. We can't paint the whole country with the same brush, so I want to break this down by region so you know exactly what to expect in your backyard. First up, the Midwest. You guys are on the front lines. The Dakotas, Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Michigan. You are looking at the potential for plowable snow. If the low track shifts slightly north, you get rain mixed with ice. If it shifts south, you get the heavy snow bands. Right now, Minneapolis to Green Bay looks like the sweet spot for winter enthusiasts and the danger zone for drivers. If you are in this corridor, make sure your winter tires are on. This isn't the time to risk it on bold all seasons. Moving to the Northeast and New England. This is the trickiest forecast. The I-95 corridor, DC, Philly, NYC, Boston, is notorious for the rain-snow line dance. Right now, it looks like the cities might start as rain and end as snow, but the interior, I'm talking central PA, upstate New York, Vermont, New Hampshire, you guys are likely getting the jackpot. If you are heading to a cabin in the mountains for the holiday, bring the shovel. You might get snowed in, which sounds romantic until the power goes out. The South and Southeast. You aren't getting snow, but you aren't off the hook. The cold front trailing this storm is going to bring a line of nasty thunderstorms. We could see severe weather, damaging winds, and maybe even a few tornadoes across the deep south on Tuesday. It is wild to think you could have a tornado warning in Alabama while Michigan has a blizzard warning. But that is exactly what this dynamic system can do. And once the rain clears, the temperature drop will be brutal. You'll be shivering in your turkey coma. The West Coast. You guys are actually the ones launching this system. The Pacific Northwest is going to get hammered with coastal rain and mountain snow first, before sending that energy east. So, Seattle and Portland, expect a very wet prelude to the holiday. The Rockies, Denver, Salt Lake City. You will see the snow first, likely early in the week. If you are skiing, this is great news. Early season powder is on the menu. The bottom line for every region is, be flexible. The exact track of the low-pressure center can shift 50 miles north or south, and that 50-mile shift changes everything. It changes a foot of snow into a cold rain. It changes a breezy day into a damaging wind event. But here is the part one love the most. The supercomputers are crunching numbers. But what about the old-school signs? The folklore? I did some digging into what the grandmas of the world are saying, and honestly, it's a little spooky how much it aligns with the science. You know, we spend so much time staring at satellite data and radar loops that we sometimes forget the original weather forecasters, the animals and the old wives' tales. And this is where the channel name, Older Says True, really hits home. I wanted to compare what the modern models are showing us with what the folklore is saying for this winter, and the overlap is kind of wild. First, let's talk about the woolly bear caterpillar. You've probably heard this one. The legend says the wider the brown band on the caterpillar, the milder the winter. But if the black bands are thick, brace yourself. Well, reports from all over the Northeast and Midwest this year have been showing woolly bears with significantly more black than brown. Grandma would say that means a harsh, biting winter is coming. And looking at this Arctic blast scheduled for Thanksgiving, it seems the caterpillars knew what was up months ago. Then there's the persimmon seeds. If you cut open a persimmon seed from a locally grown fruit, the shape of the kernel inside is supposed to predict the winter. A spoon shape means lots of snow to shovel. A knife shape means cutting, icy winds. A fork means a mild winter. I've seen videos popping up on TikTok of people cutting these open, and guess what they are finding? Spoons. Lots and lots of spoons. That aligns perfectly with the heavy precipitation and snow threats the GFS model is hinting at. And don't even get me started on the animals. Farmers have been reporting that their horses and cows grew their winter coats way earlier than usual this year. The squirrels have been frantic, gathering nuts like they are preparing for the apocalypse. Grandma always said, when the squirrel tail is bushy and wide, winter will nothing hide. It's nature's way of prepping for a survival situation. What I find fascinating is that folklore is basically just centuries of observation data compressed into rhymes and stories. They didn't have satellites, but they noticed patterns. When the cows lay down, rain is coming because they sense the pressure drop. When your joints ache, a storm is brewing, again, barometric pressure. So when you have the modern European model, predicting a massive pressure drop and your grandma's knee is acting up at the same time, you better listen. This Thanksgiving storm feels like a convergence of the old and the new. The high-tech data is confirming the low-tech instincts. It's a reminder that no matter how advanced we get with our iPhones and our apps, we are still living in a natural world that gives us signs if we are willing to look for them. So if you see a cat sneezing, which supposedly predicts rain, or sitting with its back to the fire, predicting a cold snap, don't ignore it. So, we have the science, we have the folklore, and we have the travel warnings. Now, let's wrap this up with the final verdict on how you should handle this week, and a special request I have for you. So, what is the final verdict? The verdict is, don't panic, but do prepare. This isn't about fear-mongering. It's about being the smartest person in the room. If you have flexibility, use it. Move your travel dates. Pack an emergency kit in your car, blankets, water, snacks, a flashlight. It sounds overkill until you are stuck on a highway for 4 hours. Check your tires. Check your fluids. And most importantly, check in on your people. If the weather gets bad, maybe the best decision is to stay home and do Thanksgiving over Zoom, or just delay the dinner until Saturday. There is no turkey worth risking your safety for. The holidays are about being with the people you love, and you can't do that if you're stuck in a ditch. Keep an eye on your local forecast, because things change fast. But remember, whether it's the persimmon seeds or the polar vortex, the signs are there. Winter is knocking on the door, and it's not waiting for December 21st. Thank you so much for hanging out with me and breaking down this forecast. I really hope this helps you plan a safer, happier holiday. If you found this helpful, or if you just love hearing the old wisdom mixed with the new science, please do me a huge favor. Smash that like button. It really helps the video get out to more people who need to see this travel warning. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell. You are watching Older Says True, where we believe the old ways still have a lot to teach us about the new world. Stay safe, stay warm, and happy Thanksgiving, everyone. I'll see you in the next one.